Start recording. Welcome. Thank you for coming back to FMPUG this month. Got some exciting things for you tonight. Let's see. So we're going to start off with some fun new tech that's come out recently, mostly Apple-y stuff, so for the fanboys. And this stuff got released mostly at the March Apple keynote. That's what they call those things. So we'll talk about the Apple iPhone SE, which is the smallest iPhone now. It starts at $399 for 16 gigs of storage, $499 for 64 gigs of storage. The iPhone SE is Apple's first 4-inch phone since the 5S. The processor equipped is Apple's A9. It's got a 12 megapixel iSight camera. It's actually capable of recording 4K videos, which could be pretty useful in the near future. It comes in silver, gold, space gray, and rose gold. And the critics seem to like it pretty well. It's got an 8.5 out of 10 on CNET, 8.7 out of 10 on Verge, and a 7 out of 10 on Wired. And Wired's a little bit more critical, obviously. But why would we use this thing for FileMaker? One of the reasons is because it's now Apple's smallest iPhone, which could be a big deal. If a lot of your clients end up buying these, then you don't want to be unprepared when they ask you to create like a FileMaker Go layout or an iOS app that fits the size of that screen. I'm sure the screen resolution is smaller, and if you don't have one to test with, and your clients do, then you're kind of short-handed. And it's also the most affordable new iPhone, starting at $399. So if you recently hired a bunch of employees who need something that can run FileMaker Go or something like that, then this is going to be your cheapest option to get into that. And this 4-inch phone is designed for single-handed use, just like the old phones were. It makes texting faster, and you don't have to stretch to reach the buttons on the top of the screen like I do with my iPhone 6. And your other hand's freed up, which is good. So let's see here. The next thing that Apple released recently is the 9.7-inch iPad Pro, which, as you see, comes with a keyboard and a stylus and those sorts of things. So just like the Surface Pro from Microsoft so long ago, and it starts at $599 for Wi-Fi only with 32 gigs of storage. And it goes up to $1,029 for Wi-Fi and with cellular, and 256 gigs of storage. The Smart Keyboard is $149. The Apple Pencil is sold separately and $99, so that adds quite a bit to the price. So you add all that together with the best iPad Pro, and you're looking at $1,300 or so, including tax and everything, which is obviously about the price of a good MacBook Pro. But all these models have Apple's powerful new A9X mobile processor, a little bit faster than the iPhone one I just mentioned. It's 64-bit on iPad now. And this iPad has 4 speakers instead of the usual 2, so it can provide stereo audio, and it's much louder and better quality from what I've read in the reviews. And also capable of recording 4K videos. So it comes in silver, gold, space gray, and rose gold. And everybody seems to love it. CNET gives it a 9 out of 10, The Verge gives it a 9 out of 10, and Laptop Mag gives it a 4.5 out of 5. So, a lot of companies already have iPads for FileMaker development, so why would we want this one? Because it is a Pro, it's a lot more powerful, got a lot more RAM, a lot more processor to be dished out. Really good graphics on this one. So that makes it the iPad to beat for work pretty much. The 12.9-inch version isn't portable. Anybody that actually has one of those things knows that it's pretty big to lug around. And every company needs to own an iPad for testing on iOS, because that's becoming more and more important in the world of FileMaker. There's FileMaker Go, there's WebDirect, there's the iOS SDK. They're all incredibly important and will serve different customers. The customers that come to you and say, "Oh, I want to market my FileMaker app." Well, having an iPad Pro to test with is important, because then you can test out the iOS SDK, download from the App Store, and get an idea. Because these things are probably going to be what people are buying for their field users. Because it's a little bit more expensive than the iPad Air 2, but it's worth it. It's good testing hardware. The smart keyboard makes data entry on an iPad much more practical than the touchscreen keyboard. The Apple Pencil is said to be the best digital drawing tool yet. Making fancy icons, logos, or layout backgrounds makes the pencil very tempting. So now we're crossing the pond, right? Now we're going to talk about Microsoft products for a little bit. And the Surface Book, which, as you can see, it's got a tablet mode here, it's got a keyboard, and it's got a stylus as well. So it starts at $14.99 for a 6th gen Intel Core i5 processor, 128 gig solid state drive, and 8 gigs of RAM. And it goes all the way up to $31.99 for a 6th gen Intel Core i7 processor, 1 terabyte solid state, 16 gigs of RAM, and a NVIDIA GeForce graphics card. All models come with a detachable 13.5-inch touchscreen display, and it comes with the Surface Pen. And people also really like this one. CNET gave it an 8.2 out of 10. The Verge gives it an 8.3 out of 10. Wired gave it a 7 out of 10, which is a little harsh. So once again, why do I need this? You know, why should I replace my laptop or get a new laptop, and why should it be this one? Because it's got really everything you need. It's got a great processor, plenty of RAM, solid state drive, which is becoming more and more of the industry standard, optional graphics card. So, and really even down to the cheapest configuration all the way up to the most expensive, it's never really underpowered. It doesn't have an Achilles heel like it has, great processor, great RAM, but then a 5400 RPM hard drive. So it's kind of great no matter what you do to it. So it kind of makes it like a developer's dream. You can do anything with it you can imagine. It's developed by Microsoft itself, not Dell or HP or Lenovo or any of those people. You're dealing with the purest Windows 10 experience you're going to get. The display is a touchscreen and it can actually come detached from the keyboard, so your monitor becomes a tablet, and obviously that's really attractive. But again, a big tablet, more akin to the iPad Pro, where it's this 13-inch beast you're lugging around. The Surface Pen allows for developers to draw, make notes, or write out a long math problem. The right person can make really cool icons or layout backgrounds with this. Very similar to the iPad Pro, but I have read reviews of both of these, and the Apple Pencil gets the edge every time, and being better than the Surface Pen and more accurate. So now we're getting into super developer friendly territory here. So the Lenovo P50, as you can see, it's got kind of the trademark ThinkPad stuff here. It's got the little track point here, and great keyboard, and we'll get into the rest of it. Military spec build. So the P50 is a 15-inch version of Lenovo's newest workstation laptops. It starts at about $1,322 for a 6th gen Intel Core i7 processor, 500 gig hard drive, 1080p screen, 8 gigs of RAM, and an NVIDIA Quadro M1000M graphics card. Goes all the way up to $2,352, which is still significantly cheaper than the top line Surface Book. But this one has an Intel Xeon processor, 512 gig SSD, 4K screen, 16 gigs of RAM, and an NVIDIA Quadro M2000M graphics card. It also has a 17-inch bigger brother that's named the P70. All right, I've been informed that for some reason the viewers' screens are not seeing what I'm seeing, so I'm 4 or 5 slides ahead of you guys now. So I hope you really like the Surface Book. Just keep reading of it, because that's apparently all I can get to happen here. Waiting to see somebody else's screen that's caught up with me before I continue, but I'll bet you it's an internet problem. Kind of. Yes. So experiencing technical issues. Stand by. I'll play some nice hold music for you if it takes too long. Okay, now I'm not the presenter anymore. Chris is. He's got the hold music queued up. All right, we're going to try this one more time. All right, I'm going to show my screen, and let's see if we're back. Okay, so now if I move over, hey, okay, so we're about the Surface Book. So we talked about the Surface Book. Here's the slide you didn't see. Critics like it, about generally like at 80% or so. And why I would use it for FileMaker. I've just said all this stuff, so you guys can pause and come back later or something. So here's the P50. Now you can see what I'm talking about with the track point and the little red dot there in the center of the keyboard. And now you can see some of the figures I was talking about as well. It's $1,322 all the way up to $2,352. So now we'll get into the fun part about the P50. So it got great ratings, 85% out of 100 on Notebook Check, 4 stars out of 5 on Laptop Mag. So why are we including the P50 in this list? We've got the iPad Pro, the iPhone SE, Microsoft Surface Book, all these, most of these very powerful, great machines for FileMaker development, kind of fairly obvious choices. But the P50 is special because if you know what Intel Xeon means, then you know that this is the first laptop that I know of ever in history to have like a server class processor as an option. This processor is basically overqualified for doing like anything you would normally do with, emailing, interneting, Microsoft Word, things like that, and can handle server applications as well. For example, FileMaker Server. The optional 4K screen is still cutting edge. It's important to know how FileMaker is going to render a layout in 4K because I don't know how FileMaker handles that. Is it pixelated? Or does it render it just fine? So this is a laptop that's going to put business very first. The keyboard and red track points are designed to keep your hands in a typing position at all times. You don't really go down to scroll around on the touchpad too much. And Lenovo's ThinkPad line of laptops are all mil-spec tested, which means they pass military level durability tests. So you can drop it, get water on it, all kinds of stuff, and it will survive. All right, so let's get some other people's thoughts in here. Let's unmute, speak up, hang out, and ask questions and stuff. I have one brave soul here named Jason that has unmuted.
Oh.
Yeah, little did he know. All right, and if we don't have any questions too soon, then I'll pass it over to Jason to move on to the exciting selection routines presentation he's got going on.
I was thinking I'd just tell everyone that Lenovo is the best computer in the world, bar none, and start document.
Right.
Well, where's all the Apple folks?
Yes, well, I obviously disagree, and I think Apple is way better.
I'm
But
dying for one of those P70s, but a little bit pricey. Anyway.
Anybody else on the call out there got any of these new gadgets or had any FileMaker experiences to go along with any of the stuff that's happening? No is okay,
no,
I guess.
it's an acceptable answer. All right, then I think I'll probably turn it over to you if we don't get any involvement here in the next couple minutes. I'll give you guys till 6:15. It's about 30 seconds.
Well, Wayne and I were down at the Apple Store a few weeks ago at a little FileMaker kind of thing that they held there to do some stuff with the iPad, and they were kind of co-demoing that new iPad Pro, and they were really carrying on between the FileMaker people and the Apple people in the room. They were going absolutely bananas about the sound quality that the thing was producing. So, sitting in a room full of people, without the thing in my lap, I couldn't really tell, but they were really saying like this has got to be like the best sound quality ever produced by a handheld device sort of thing. It's immersive sound like you would get from a big stereo system or something while you're watching a movie and with something held in your hands there. So yet to see if that's really the thing, but from a business application standpoint, I'm not sure how how high fidelity the bong sound that it makes when I make an error really ends up mattering. But that was an interesting experience. They were just kind of carrying on about that. So got to go play with one sometime when we get 5 minutes to hang around in the Apple Store. But,
Frank looks like he's got a good question here. What would us guys recommend for a FM server / WebDirect computer with about 10 WebDirect users? And I don't know. I've seen a lot of people do the Mac Mini thing where they have. In fact, I'll just pull it up. Let's see. So I believe Apple has a Mac Mini server edition, or at least it used to. So 10 users, not too bad. And I'm assuming this is going to be on your local network so that you're not like trying to access this thing over the wide area network or anything. But yeah, these guys, they come in like 1 terabyte, 8 gigs of RAM, kind of i5 processor, not too wonderful, but for $1,000, that's not really breaking the bank. And I've seen a lot of people do this as kind of like a local small server. So is that my recommendation? Pretty much, I guess. I've never done it, but I know so many companies that have that. I think it's probably a safe route. What about you, Jason?
Wayne, why don't you pull up the FileMaker server recommended specifications there, and especially with WebDirect, Frank, if you're going to be hosting this thing again, as Wayne suggested, over the WAN, if your WebDirect solution is going to be something people are accessing from outside the local network where the server is, then FileMaker does recommend that you do beef up a little bit when it comes to server resources. So somewhere they kind of give you a recommendation, and really, you can see there that Wayne's expensive Mac Mini, met the recommended specs there for FileMaker server. But I think, let's see, if you look down a little bit further there on the page where you can see
mobile hardware.
Recommended
hardware for WebDirect.
Yeah, there we go. That's the stuff. So they're kind of saying how many users are you planning to have and that kind of thing. And really the moral of the story is here is if you're going to expect a large number of users, and really this really comes down to how well your solution is architected for performance, then you should probably go ahead and invest in a little more hardware. So Frank, if you really are just in in a local area network environment, you can probably get away with running FileMaker server on a laptop. It's not it ends up working pretty well in that regard. But Mac Pro, you're shooting high there for what's potentially needed. But let's see. You're saying not excited about the FileMaker Server 14 update for OS 10. Huh.
Jason, didn't you have a conversation recently with DocuWorks about performance of WebDirect on a server? I thought they had some specific suggestions. Honestly, I wasn't involved, so I can't remember the details. So I'm just going to throw you under the bus.
Thanks. It's noisy, but I'll try to speak over the engine and exhaust noise from here under the bus. The guys DocuWorks that Chris just mentioned here do a big, like a really big software as a service type of deployment with FileMaker, and they have WebDirect versions of that available for specifically for phone and for iPad, and so it's a pretty big, kind of really widely distributed type of solution there, and they've really got it really high, like fine-tuned for performance there over the wide area network. So they've actually, I think, ended up moving all this stuff up into the cloud. So I think they were hosting their own little Mac Mini server farm there, and they had some really, really beefed up ones. I think, in the $2,000 to $3,000 range per unit Mac Minis there, which is a little baffling to me. I mean, it seems to defeat the purpose to buy a very small computer and then spend big computer money on it. But that was the way they went. But they were successful with it for a while. But I think in the end they ended up leasing cloud server space to run these things. So Frank, I guess if you'd like. And like I said, I think your Mac Pro with a RAID configuration and everything sounds like you're at the level of hardware there that is very likely to be as good as you can get without going like big iron kind of stuff. And that's usually off the FileMaker radar for hardware deployments, but you're probably okay. You're going to get as good a performance out of that as you can, and as long as you got your network optimized and you've got good solid internet service wherever you are there, you're you're doing as well as you can at the moment. I actually can't speak to the FileMaker server update that you mentioned there. In large part, at Extensitech here, the company that Wayne, Chris, and I here comprise, most of our servers, our client servers and our own server included, are Windows machines. So hosting FileMaker on Mac is something that we run into and we support from time to time. But for the most part, it's kind of like the rest of the computer world. Pretty much everybody's doing that on Windows. So. Karen says, yay for Windows there. But anyway, okay, so I guess unless anybody else has any other questions or comments or anything like that, I certainly want to invite you guys to speak up. You can turn on your microphones or join in. We really like to have an open discussion kind of forum here, format, and the questions are. Okay, yeah, Karen, thanks. The questions are welcome. Interruptions are welcome. Tangents are welcome. We really just kind of want to go with the flow when it comes to, getting everybody's interests and questions and that kind of thing. So please, please speak up. Don't feel like you have to text. Jump in on the call if you want. And actually, since we got a lot of folks who I don't think we've actually had in one of our meetings yet, I'd really love for everybody to take a couple of seconds and. Just go around and let us know who you are, where you're from, and if you want to say a thing or two about what you do with FileMaker, that'd be great. So I'll go ahead and introduce ourselves just to get that out of the way. Again, like I said, we're all from Extensitech here: Chris, Kane, Jason Sanders, and Wayne, and and we're hosting the meeting here for the Tampa chapter. So yeah, somebody jump in. Tell us who you are and what you're about there.
So my name is Frank Pontner. I'm from Ottawa, Canada. Been doing FileMaker for about 12 years or so. If I can just ask a quick question, you guys said that you're generally doing Windows computers for a server with about 10 WebDirect users. I guess I was curious what kind of a Windows server you'd be using in that case.
Should we get into high velocity or?
Well, yeah, certainly, Frank. We can tell you about the server hardware that we leased, and this is again it's pretty generic, honestly. I don't think we have any kind of real specific preferences when it comes to that, but just making sure that you've got plenty of resources. FileMaker, the platform in general, is kind of a resource hog. So just being sure that you got a lot of room, above your head when it comes to how hard you're hitting the processors and how many cores you have available, and how much RAM you have allocated for FileMaker and that sort of thing. So, our own server. Gosh, Wayne, you're managing that, so you could probably say.
Yeah, I kind of just found a local dedicated server host. In this case, it's High Velocity. They're based in Tampa. We're based in Brooksville. So, the data only has, so many miles to travel, but it's pretty close. We can drive to their facility, actually. And I just come here and found out what was for sale. Like this one is a good example. This is a single processor, but you can bet that this thing, it's 3.5 gigahertz, Haswell, means it's a fairly new processor. And of course, these are all Xeons, every last one of these guys, right? As you can see, Intel Xeon processors. So that's highly recommended for me. From a processor standpoint, that's my favorite, obviously, for servers. Then it's, how many cores is it, how much RAM does it have, etc. But none of these guys go too small. You're never going to own it, but this thing is just a complete monster. As far as transfer speed, the $169 a month, that's not too bad. So this is the route we decided to go: a local dedicated server, so that we're not in the cloud and we're not paying that kind of money. It's hard to afford a lot of RAM and a lot of especially a lot of hard drive space in the cloud for some reason. It's very expensive.
Okay.
So you're up in Ottawa, Canada, right? You said.
Yep, that's right.
So I would wonder if they have something just like this up there. There's definitely a lot of technology up there as well. And you might be able to find something. I mean, Ottawa itself is a pretty big city, so there might even be something right in your backyard. It's real local.
Yeah, I was going to ask to that end, Frank. Who are you expecting to reach? Are your clients really spread out? Are they international, or are they right nearby? Because as we were shopping for hosts when we wanted to switch up what we were doing, we ended up starting off with a server that was across the United States from us over in Nevada, I think. So we're down here in sort of Central Florida, and all the way across the country turned out to actually create a pretty significant lag that we weren't used to experiencing. Our server that we moved from prior to that was up in Jacksonville, so it's a couple of 100 miles from where we are, but the performance we'd come to sort of expect out of that was just really terrible when it came to using a server from across the country, which actually had quite a lot better specifications than our earlier servers. So what we ended up with is coming back home. We ended up finding something that was really geographically located close to us. So that is, I would say, possibly even a larger concern for you than your overall server specifications is, where are you? How close are your clients to your server?
This is actually a client that's going to have to host their server themselves, so I'm just trying to recommend a server to them.
Okay.
Normally I would go with a Mac Mini.
Sure. And are they actually going to be, having remote users connecting with FileMaker Pro or Go or anything like that from outside their local network, or are they pretty much all in-house?
Locally or in-house, it's FileMaker Pro. Externally, it's WebDirect.
WebDirect, okay, yeah. So I would say that it is, internet's still going to be, that connection speed is going to be the big bottleneck in general. So the server you've described there, the Mac Pro, is probably sufficient. I wouldn't say you could spend more money on a server and get an appreciable amount of performance increase out of that. More money on internet might be a better job, but that's probably as far as we could take it.
All right, appreciate the advice.
Yeah, certainly.
All right. Well,
I unmuted so I could chat.
There she is. Can almost hear you.
Well, one of the things I'm loving about a meeting online is while you guys have been talking, I've been clicking away doing development work while I'm listening, so I get to do two things at once. So that's nice.
That's fantastic.
I'm from New York. I usually go to the New York group in Manhattan. I've been using FileMaker for about 20 years and doing it full-time as a developer for about 10. My clients range from individuals to work groups of around 40 or so. And I still have some people on FileMaker 11 and a range of people on 13 and 14. So most of the large work groups are still on 11 because big IT is really slow to move.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm having a lot of fun with that issue right now because, of course, all of the big IT departments, probably on the whole planet, are suddenly going, oh, crap. So I imagine any of you with any large groups of FileMaker 11 work groups, they're probably all saying, oh, my God, we need to switch finally. Okay.
And maybe in a little scramble there, right? Yeah.
Well, I'm laughing because even though, they know the rules, IT still goes and sticks an El Capitan computer in front of user, and the screen's going black, and I'm like, we're weeks away from launching on 14. Why are you doing this now?
Yes, and then it's all going to change again, we're due for another release, so we're out for more excitement.
Well, it's funny, like with big IT, they usually plan on not letting things change for 3 to 5 years. Another client that still has no plan to switch from 11, I talked to some of the users, it's a large company, some of them are still on Snow Leopard. I don't even know how they're buying Macs that can run Snow Leopard. But
refurbished, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of our clients here in Tampa is called Mac of All Trades. They'll hook them up. They'll get them some used Mac gear.
So I just, I keep, every time I talk to one of the IT people, I say, by the way, I hope you realize one of these days it's going to blow up on you. Like you have to start planning the move. So
it is going that way, and FileMaker's moving faster. I think their plans, it sounds like, are to start making more releases more often, and
yeah. Now the question
that just
is,
means we're. Go ahead.
are they going to start deprecating the older versions quicker? Like last year, they kicked FileMaker 12 off the island, right? So if they start speeding up the lack of support, which means no more patches for new OS releases, it's going to get sticky with slow-moving IT departments.
Yeah. I think that's the nature of the beast, though. I guess I mean, big IT doesn't really like FileMaker. We do move a little fast. That seems to be my experience as well. Is that they like things that are a bit more predictable and so far away from the user's hands that they there's no chance of getting surprised. And I get it. It's about liability. It's about risk to the company, and you don't want to have a mission critical application fail because Bob in accounting is the one who wrote it or something like that, right?
I'm thinking it's more like they don't like change because it means they have to get off their duff and go do something. So
that's true. Well,
everybody's on Microsoft Office. We're happy.
Yeah, stick with Access. They have to hire a FileMaker consultant, and that's probably the worst thing that they can imagine. Well,
even the one that has everybody on 11 still and not planning to move, they have about 7 developer consultants. All each larger work group is allowed to work with whom they want. So there's a bunch of different people. It's a global company.
Oh boy.
And I know that it's been kind of funny. Like I've known some of the guys, and they're like, "Oh, you still at Christie's? I'm not." They're who the client is.
Wow.
So it's funny. You trip over each other, and
yeah, it's fun working with multiple developers, isn't it? Or development companies, especially. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of
especially if IT has the master password, because when I go and peek on their system once in a blue, when they have me in, I'm like, what the heck? But there's.
What have you people done? Yeah.
Well, one of the things I thought was funny is on a very lockdown tight system, they just stuck a single new script open to all that could let someone export anything they want from any layout. I'm like, okay, so much for security.
Why not? Yeah. Just
what could possibly go wrong? That could go wrong. My computer just died.
No, that thing looks on to me. No? Well, Jason has left the building.
Possible. Yeah.
His computer has kicked the bucket now.
Macs don't crash, so it's clearly not a crash.
I see Rohit has come alive here.
Hey guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Very good job on pronouncing my name.
Hey, first try, right?
Correct. Yeah. I am a FileMaker developer in Atlanta. I work for Gearbox Solutions. We're a team of about, it's hard to say, depending on who you count, but a core team of 5 people.
Wow.
And
yeah, that's tight.
I met Chris and Frank at Pause on Air in Cleveland about a month ago, I think it was at this point. Maybe exactly a month.
Very nice. Well,
yeah,
nice to meet you, kinda.
I've only been doing FileMaker full time now. It's been just my 2 years was on April 1st.
I've been doing it 3 years. Yeah, I understand.
I just jumped right into it. Before I started, I spent 2 months going through the training series and getting certified and all that back in 12. So I've done some stuff in 11, but the only things that I've done a lot of stuff in 11. I've supported many legacy solutions. Can you also hear me?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, Jason dropped off there.
Okay. But I've really only had to work in new development-wise, 13 and 14, which
yeah, lucky.
is been great for me. Yeah. I love doing crazy stuff in FileMaker. Sometimes it is not the best thing, but I think in the long run it pays off.
It's so much easier than a
trying
lot
new
of stuff.
things.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, that's why I
super
was
easy
really
to
intrigued by Chris's presentation in Cleveland, where about the extreme abstraction, and especially the way he passes in parameters and stuff like that. I've been messing around with abstraction for about a year now, passing in what I want as things, and
Yep.
it gets complicated when you're talking about the order of what you want to do, like set this field after you do all this stuff, rather than before. And I have not yet had the nerve to do something like that in my own solution, you know, having a huge script calling a bunch of other scripts based off of the order of the parameters, but probably one day I'll get tired of creating new scripts and just go ahead and do it.
Yeah, this is Chris. I definitely remember Rohit from my presentation because he asked the most questions, and they honestly, I think they might have been the best questions too. Some of them were kind of caught me off guard because they were really, really good questions. They made me stop and think. So that was really excellent. And Rohit and Frank and another gentleman, Patrick Briggs, we all ended up having a follow-up geek out that was really a lot of fun. So I'm glad you guys can join us and we get to talk some more.
Absolutely. I don't make it out to. We have a FileMaker user group in Atlanta, but Atlanta's a really big city, and it's about this time, not on Thursdays, on Wednesdays, and traveling across the city to get there, and they don't do it online. So this is a little bit more convenient.
Yeah, if we can build up this group a little, and it looks like we'll be able to, we might just give up the pretense of calling it the Tampa group and just call it an online group. Because the Extensitech folks here are the only ones here from the Tampa area, and we're not even really in Tampa. So,
really, where are y'all located?
We're about an hour and a half north. So,
okay.
Yeah, I know that for sure because I had to drive back just in time for this meeting. So
nobody's in Clearwater?
Nobody here today. The DocuWorks folks, they're in Clearwater, and they're not in attendance today. But
what was funny, what caught my eye is you're about a mile from my high school best friend. So I was thinking, I should get to know those guys. That way I can go to a meeting and write off the plane ride.
We will cooperate with that. That sounds good. We'll help you dodge those taxes, no problem. We'll take you out to dinner on our company dime. There you go. Put it right off.
I'd like to hear more about Pause on Error. I didn't get to go this year.
Yeah, that's good timing because Jason is, I think, getting set up. He had to switch computers, but yeah, I had a really good time there. Rohit?
Yeah, I really good. Same thing. If you've ever been to DEF CON, I guess by reading into your comment, you've been to Pause on Error before, so it's like.
Yeah, both New York ones, and I've been to, I guess, half dozen or so DEF CONs.
Yeah, so I learned a lot, especially from Chris's thing. It's like you making fun of me for those questions, just because I've been I ask those questions because I have been doing that stuff myself. So the thing about like sorting and stuff like that is just things that I've run into myself that are a real pain in the ass when you're trying to do modular stuff. But lots of other cool stuff. You always learn some cool tips that help you in your development. One of the most useful things I learned was that I've already implemented at least is that in a list view, you want to use to display related data. You want to use pop-up menus and non-conditional pop-up menus. They make a huge difference over the WAN. Just already have optimized one solution I'm working on just by using pop-up menus to display the data, even though they're not necessarily interacting with it in a list view.
I like the way you think, Rohit, by the way.
Thanks.
I didn't actually share that tip with my own group, so it's worth talking about real quick. That was I was in the same session. That was really cool. Where who was it? That was the Perrin Smith or Chris Irvine. I get them mixed up.
I think it was Chris Irvine. I have his business card, but not in front.
Yeah, and I've had geek outs with him too. He's really creative, but he was demonstrating. He had a machine where he was purposely degrading the WAN connection and trying different techniques with that degraded WAN connection. And what he showed was if you had a single related value, like let's say you have a related person and you need to show the person's name on the related person's name on a list view, loading the list could sometimes be really slow, especially if you degraded the WAN really bad. But if you did a value list based on a related person, and with the primary key, but show the name, that it loaded like incredibly fast by comparison. Because it didn't have to load the entire related record. It was theory going around. Of course, we never quite exactly how it works, but it definitely works.
So yeah, so if you were just displaying the related field on the list view, FileMaker is pulling each one of those records for every record in your list view. And you know that it loads. It probably does. I mean, it doesn't load all. You know, if you have a million list view records, it doesn't load them all those million related contacts at once. But whatever you're seeing, it's going to pull one of those related records. But when you have a value list, it just pulls that index list once, and now that's cached on the client side. So your desktop client can do the business of displaying the data for you rather than having to make a call back and forth to FileMaker for every single record.
I like it.
Yeah, but overall, pause on error was, I thought, especially really well organized. I actually have photos. If I thought about it, I have them on my phone, but the hotel really went all out advertising us. For instance, there was like a 3-story sign on the corner that was pause on error was in town, and so that was more publicity than we get for DevCon. It was
right.
Kind of exciting to see. Well, Jason, are you about ready?
Yeah, I think so.
Still can't hear you, Jason. Jason's over there talking to himself. Can you guys presenting is well, selectification is really what he wants to call it, but methods of selecting related records, and is a topic near and dear to our hearts because we've kind of standardized the heck out of selection. We think it's probably one of the more important things that happens when using a relational database is you're asking the user, you know, what other records do you want to link this record to? And there's only about 1 million ways to do that. You know, there's drop-down lists, pop-up lists, there's adding in a portal, there's new methods coming forward with the select connector. And, you know, some of the various nuances that go with that, things like dealing with duplicates and dealing with, you know, what if the record you want doesn't exist yet? How can I add it? Kind of guiding the user through that sort of thing. So, all right. It's a Mac. It can't be that hard, guys. If you can't tell, I'm a Windows guy, so I have to make fun of Mac people because I get it back in spades.
I used to be a Windows guy. I'm not a Windows guy, but I have been using a Mac that started at my company 2 years ago. And I really like it for FileMaker development. I think once you start developing on a Mac, it's hard to go back in Windows just because of the whole window inside a window thing is kind of weird once you switch over.
Well, we're hoping that'll go away soon. The FileMaker's made noises about that. I would say that with some of the changes in 14, they've made working on but I'm actually one of the few people who started on a Mac and then switched to Windows. I use both as well, but I pretty much all my development on Windows.
Now I will say I've switched to iPhone recently when the 6 came out, just because, you know, that's the only thing that FileMaker Go is supported on. Mm-hmm. But Android is hands down for me a better phone.
Yeah.
Just if for nothing else, the back button.
iPhone to Android. So yeah, I don't know. I like. There's some things I miss about my iPhone, but for the most part, I like Android. If for nothing else than being able to swipe my text messages, that adds years to my life, I think. All right, we may have to move Jason to a Windows machine at this point.
Everything's working except for the headset. Sorry.
Perfect timing. So did you hire her?
Yeah, no, she works for me, but I'm just laughing like she's not even saying could you even chip in? She's just like announces to me, I'm going to DevCon, and I'm like, whoa.
I shared a room at Pause on Error with a gentleman that's up in the Chicago area, and just prior to that, we had been talking, and he was trying to hire somebody, and he ran across somebody who had, on her own dime, like you said, signed up for Pause on Error and DevCon, and also scored high on the test he gave her and everything. So I mean, she's very qualified, but that was really impressive. You know, that on her. For her own improvement, she went to both of those things.
I love seeing that initiative. I wish my male junior had that same initiative, but he would rather play video games when he goes home. So, oh well.
Yeah.
Hey.
Oh, goodness. Jason's here.
All right.
All right.
All right, we might get a presentation tonight after all. Okay.
Wow. Well, good to hear people talking, though. I got to say that sometimes, we do this thing and folks just start, I don't know, maybe they're multitasking too hard, but it's nice to have a conversation since we're not in person. That's really cool. So thanks guys for sticking in there. And I think despite all the great hardware sitting in front of me here, I finally got one that will do the thing and we can get started. So without further ado. The silly name on the screen is my own kind of goofy thing that I like to do all the time because I can't take anything seriously, it would seem, and that's to make up words, a la Don King. And when we come up with these sort of concepts that need to be talked about ad nauseum, it would seem at times. I don't know. I just like to make fun of stuff. So selectification is the topic of the evening, and it is just really about the whole process of trying to figure out how to link records together in FileMaker. And it always starts off, especially with maybe less experienced FileMaker developers, as one of those things that's like, I just want to do this thing. It's really straightforward. It's really simple. I just want to make this record go with that other record. So a pretty simple concept in general, and it sounds like we got a lot of really experienced developers on the call. So you've probably been down all these paths yourselves and seen other people making all these mistakes. But the idea behind our presentation tonight is just to kind of explore
the evolution of selection and think through the reasons that we go to some of the great lengths that we do to get certain of these things accomplished. And some of this, toward the end, where we start talking about some of our own methods, are they're gonna dovetail with some of the stuff that you may have heard Chris talking about at Pause lately. These are ideas about abstraction and reusability and stuff like that. And that just drives our own process so hugely, just because of the way that Extensitech works as a business and our model in general. Being around managing a very large number of clients and users and solutions and that sort of thing, and having a lot of what's the right word here? Just methodologies to lean on so that we can support all those folks with our really small staff. So selectification and this is a discussion. So like I said, please feel free to jump in. We're a little squeezed for time, a little more than I thought we might be otherwise. But so I'll move quickly. But like I said, jump in with your experiences, your questions, your thoughts on our ideas as well, and we'll just make time. So to kind of give an overview of what why this is a thing to talk about here, is that it's not, it really is rarely just a matter of taking one record that exists and relating it to another record that exists. They're just a bunch of scenarios that have to get covered here. And so I kind of want to use that as an outline of how we're going to move through the different methodologies. And that is to say that, you got certain things you need to get done, and each of the use cases kind of comes with its own set of things you have to figure out on the way. So the objectives that I kind of outlined here, there could be more. There are permutations of these and that kind of thing, but this is a kind of a distillation of the concepts. So you're going to be picking from existing records. So the example I give here is that you're on a sales order and you have line items on your sales order, and you want to choose an item from your inventory to populate that line item. So I have an existing set of values in my items table or whatever it is, and I'm picking from those items. I'm not worried about adding new items at the moment. I just want one of those that I know is there, and I want to put it on this line item record. Then there's the scenario that's a little more complicated. It's that you want to create a new record, right? So you have, in my example here, I'm writing an email and I've just met this person. So I want to add this person to my contacts database in the process of creating my email. So I've got an email record that exists and I got a contact record that doesn't exist. So I'd like to be able to pick from, use the same tool to pick from my existing contacts if I do know them, but also be able to add a new contact as I'm while I'm in the process, because, well, that's just likely to come up in business. So that's another one. So it's the ability to add a new record and then select that record kind of in the same fail swoop there. Then, so those are kind of the main ones that I want to focus on. Like I said, there are probably other selection scenarios that are a little finer, detailed. But in general, you got these kind of couple of things. I either have a record I want to pick that exists, or I need to get a record to pick once it exists. So these then break down into a few other kind of selection types, and types is a horrible description here. It's too generic, but I don't know what to call these: selection categories or selection, I don't know, doohickeys, right? So you've got the selection where I can pick up to one record. I don't have to pick a record here. My business rules say it, it's okay if I leave this blank. I don't have to choose one right now. But once I get into my selection, it's okay to get out of it without picking one. So I can pick up to 0, or I can pick 0 up to 1 record. Or I got other situations where I want to, I can do an optional selection, but I can pick more than one, right? Maybe it requires more than one. So an example would be, I want to pick multiple contacts to assign to a task here on this. So me, Chris, and Wayne have a particular objective to get done, and so I'm going to assign all of us, and whoever gets to it first is going to be the one to take care of it. So that maybe nobody gets assigned, more than one person can be assigned. Then you got one and only one selection, so it's kind of a mandatory thing. It's like, once you initiate this, I can't let you go. You have to pick somebody, or you start over, kind of thing, business rules wise. And so that's one, but you can only pick one. You can't pick multiple records here. You have to choose one, and before you can move on. And then finally one mandatory selection, so one to many. I have to pick one. I might pick more than one though. All right. So kind of a good overview of the things that you may end up doing in the course of selection in your interface there. So now talking about how to get those things done, the selection methodologies that we have kind of available to us in FileMaker and in general in the FileMaker community, I've described in these ways here. You've got the native FileMaker tools, those being your drop-down lists and pop-up menus, the things that it seems like FileMaker probably intended us to use for this purpose. And then because we know that those things don't actually accomplish all of the objectives that I described before, we move through some more complex methods, which are doing things like putting portals, in places on layouts where they're not ever present, but they pop up when you need them to. So you can hide your portals of records to select from on popovers or slide panels or tab panels that are hiding or whatever the case is. So hidden portals, I call those. You can use custom layouts. So you build a whole layout that's really just designed around the user interface of picking records from a list there. And then you can leverage existing layouts, and this one's getting kind of out there. This is something that we did extensively in the past in older versions of our base solution, and that was using layouts that we'd already built for other purposes, but putting features onto those layouts that allowed us to also use them as selection layouts in the list view. And then finally, I'm going to go into something called Xlink, and that's our sort of Extensitech brand of selection there, and it is in our humble opinions, right, the ultimate selection tool. If you're wondering, and if you've heard about this before, I do have selector connector referenced here in the in my presentation. Those guys did. Geist Interactive did some pretty amazing work over there. That's a pretty powerful tool, but it's a lot more than just a selector. And so the selector part of that ends up being essentially an extension of the hidden portals concept that I'm describing here. So we'll see how that comes together. So let's kind of jump into the tools here, and I'll get into some demo and that kind of thing, just sort of break down the methods real quick and kind of talk about why some of the simpler things, which we'd all just sort of really love to use and not think about this too hard, don't really work very well. So using the native FileMaker tools here, the good part about that is obviously that they're very easy to deploy. It's pretty simple FileMaker development. They come out of the box working like they work, and I think that generally is about the end of that discussion. They're easy, but they don't do all the things that you need to do when you're handling these multiple potential selection scenarios in your solution. So one of the things that, by the way, just drives this whole discussion for us is that we're so big on standardization that we want to be able to reuse the tools that we have as often as possible, so that we're not continuously reinventing the wheel in our FileMaker development, day-to-day, hands on the keyboard kind of work. And in doing so, I'm kind of doing a little tangent here to my presentation, but in doing that, what we're really aiming to do is add value to our customers. So while we love to kind of geek out over this stuff and make things unnecessarily complicated because we're geeky developers, right? But at the end of the day, what we're really shooting for here are methods that allow us to add value to our clients. So when we come in with a project that allows where we can lay out tools on the screen for our users that we can just basically plop down without having to really do much in the way of development, that means that the time that our clients do pay us for development ends up being much more focused on helping them with their business requirements, helping them work through problems that they haven't really resolved yet. And so, like I said, that's why we have probably a disproportionate focus on this kind of development tool than maybe other developers that you've encountered. So, like I said, if you were at Pause, it sounds like at least Frank, you were there or whatever. You heard a lot about that from Chris, and his whole concept of driven to abstraction. We're way out on the bleeding edge, and so some of the stuff we'll end up talking about here, it may be just overkill. It's way more than the average developer or than certainly the novice developer is going to get into. But the idea though, here is to spur the thinking. Think about the concepts and think through the ramifications of making some decisions about using tools like this or developing, certainly developing your own tools, because ours are not exactly easy to get to. So let's get right into pop-up menus. It's kind of the most basic unit, I think. It seems to be the thing, like I said, that FileMaker intended us to use for doing selections. like I said, there are some inherent deficiencies with it when it comes to managing selection. So you can't add a new record when you're doing a pop-up. So your user, if they wanted to pick a new record while they're in the middle of making this selection, they'd have to leave where they are, go to another screen, make the new record, come back, and then pick it from the list. So it's doable, that works, but it's pretty clunky from a user interface and experience sort of standpoint. So you can't pick multiple records, right? So you really can only easily choose one record at a time with a pop-up menu. It can't deal with multiple matching records. So if I have, if I'm picking contacts from a list and I have more than one John Smith in my database, well, the system sort of breaks down there at that point. It doesn't know what to do. If I've got multiple, FileMaker's default behavior is if you pick John Smith, it will grab you the first related one, unless you intervene as a developer and do something different. Unpicking on a pop-up menu is not exactly intuitive, right? You have to know the sort of secret trick to hold down the shift key and unselect something when you're clicking on it. So deselection turns out to be, more trouble than you would imagine. And there's certainly weirdness when you go deleting the related records. If you've ever seen that before, where you've got a FileMaker pop-up set up with the secondary values displaying only, so that you don't have to see the keys if you're using you're a good developer and you're using your primary keys and foreign keys behind the scenes there. If you delete that related record, suddenly the user is faced with this inexplicable value that's showing where someone's name used to be there, or whatever it is that got deleted. So again, kind of, this stuff sort of works, but it is very easy to develop, but it isn't complete, and it basically ends up, giving your users kind of an unpolished experience. And from a data integrity standpoint, it's kind of inaccurate when it comes to that, records deleting, and you're still showing values on a screen that don't make any sense. So let's take a look real quick at a pop-up menu solution. And sorry, I'm on a different computer, so I don't quite know how to move around as well, but here we go. Here's my demo file, and you can see here I've got a simple record. I'll show you around the file real quick so you kind of get the lay of the land. Managed database here. I have two tables, people and colors, and we're going to pick our favorite colors for people, kind of thing. So here are our relationships. I'm primarily focused on people, and I'm going to be picking colors for people's favorite colors in a variety of ways here. So that's kind of my silly demo that I've set up for you here. And so there are a couple of things in here that I can walk through quickly as far as the underlying structure as we go through these things. But I think hopefully that's sufficient. Like I said, super basic concept. Just to be able to show you, picking from a list to relate two records together. So I've got me here, and I think I picked on Wayne. Whoops, wrong button. I think I picked on Wayne here. Still wrong button. Nope, Wayne's keystrokes are different than mine. There's Wayne. All right, so I got a couple records in my selection demo here, and favorite color for Jason is going to be green. All right, so this seems to work smashingly. I've got my list of colors that I'm pulling up from my colors table. So here's my colors layout here, and you can see I've got a few records. I've got a few other fields and colors I might be keeping track of or whatever, but basic idea. I got a table of colors and a table of people. I want to link them together. So pop-up menu. I'm picking from my related records. My value list is based on colors table, showing all records. And excuse me. So the concept behind this is that I've got this FileMaker native contraption here. I'm showing you the foreign key in my people table for the colors table. So I'm actually not even showing the colors name here. This field is based on the foreign key. The value list is the trickeration that FileMaker gives us to do this with. And you see I'm using some generic table name here, but I'm using values from a related table. Okay, so I'm using from colors. I want to use the primary key field there, and only display values from the second field. So that lets me have this field on my layout that is the primary or the foreign key of colors in the local table, and it lets me display only the values that my user really wants to see. So pretty neat solution, FileMaker. Thanks for doing that. It's kind of really clean. But like I said, right away, you run out of options before you even get going here. I have to hold down the shift key to deselect, right? If I don't know how to do that, I'm stuck trying to figure out, well, no other way to get rid of this value, right, as a user. If you if I want to add a color right now, I don't have any alternative. I have to go to the colors table and I need to add brown or whatever it is, and then I can come back and I can select my favorite color from the list. So, you know, it immediately introduces like a kind of a user issue there. So then there are also some other kind of, you know, creature comforts depending on the operating system you're on. Type ahead behaves really strangely depending whether you're on Windows or Mac, and which one of the things you use here, whether it's a pop-up menu or a drop-down list, which I'll demonstrate next. Depending on which platform you're on, type ahead, where, you know, if you got a very long list of names or something like that, either works or doesn't work depending on which platform you're on and which one of these object types you're using. So it's really inconsistent from a user perspective as well, right? So if you have a mixed house, which, you know, lots of our clients do, you really can't predict the behavior very effectively when it comes to being able to type ahead and tab in and out of objects. And you know, for instance, if you tab into a pop-up menu in Windows and Mac, it doesn't pop the list for you. So see, I'm in the name field, I tab, it doesn't do the thing, right? I'd really like for it to pop up that menu for me so I don't have to stop and click and that sort of thing. So there's pop-up menus, and so we'll jump back over here and go back into our play mode and look at drop-down lists. So drop-down list ends up having a lot of the same shortcomings as pop-up menu because it can't handle those more complex selection environments. But it does have some of the benefits of being able to, you know, handle certain things like type ahead a little bit more in a little bit better fashion. You know, you can anticipate some of the behaviors, like what's it going to do when I tab into this object with a drop-down list on it. But this does require a little bit more FileMaker development here. So I've kind of noted that this is kind of the beginning of the end here, where we've run out of FileMaker native stuff and we already have to start deploying some kind of stupid FileMaker tricks, as we call them. So I'll jump over to the drop-down list layout here. So same records and everything. So again, just kind of using the same set of records to demonstrate these concepts. So I've got a selection, right? You can see I'm clicking into a field here, so not a pop-up menu object, but a drop-down list, and I can choose the colors that exist with really no great trouble there, right? Let's see. Chris, don't write things like that while I'm talking. I'll never be able to get to that. Forgive Chris; he's a bigger geek than I am. So, all right. So the concept here is that I now have to do a few more things to get this to work, okay? Because a drop-down list by itself isn't going to do that cool primary foreign key trick where it, you know, FileMaker hides the second value and all that stuff very neatly. So I got to do this thing where I have a couple of stacked fields here, right? So I've got a field in the back that's local to my people table where I can insert a value like brown or green or blue or whatever, and then I have to create a relationship over in my graph that will match on that, so I can do a lookup. So now I've got a few more moving parts to my contraption here, but the end result is that I click into the back. Oh, I left out some details. Sorry. This top field is not enterable in browse mode, so I click right through it in FileMaker. The back field is enterable in browse mode, but not in find mode. So when I do click into it here, I go right past the front field and into the back field where I produce the value list, because that's the object that the value list is linked to. So now I can do things like type ahead where I couldn't before on Mac, right? So that's now helpful. It also will pop up the value list for me when I tab into the field. So again, tab there. Let's see. Yes, the bomb character. We're just not going to touch the bomb character tonight, but it's a marvel, a modern marvel. It's the bomb. So there's drop-down list. So I've got a little bit more contraption, like I said here. If we take a look at the relationships involved, you can see that I've got a relationship called color name lookup here, where I'm using the color name field over my color field or color table, and the color match field, which is kind of just a placeholder field, so I can make this selection on the interface, and I got to link those together. So where my color match field matches some name of a color over here on this side, I'll create a match, and then my primary or my foreign key over here for colors will look up neatly for me here. So it says where colors name lookup matches, then give me the primary key. All right. So I mean, again, fairly experienced FileMaker developers on the line. we can do this stuff. It's not that difficult. But honestly, when I first got into this 10 years ago or so, I was kind of going, we have to what? You got to do all that to produce a kind of a list to select from. That's a kind of bending over backwards already. So little did I know that was hardly anything. But you kind of get the point, is that already we're down a path here of because we want a little more flexibility. We want we want some creature comforts for the user. We're going to do some things in FileMaker that we might not otherwise think of doing here. So that's drop-down lists. Now, hidden portals, things get even more complicated. Now we're going to start building some pretty complex layout elements. We're going to do some scripting. The downside of this kind of stuff is that because there's so much to it, right? There's a couple of there are a couple of there are a couple more things to deal with. There's scripting. There are things on the layout now that have to be repointed and stuff like that. So it becomes less and less portable than just being able to kind of copy paste some fields that have some nice simple characteristics and repoint them. The upside is, of course, that we're doing this for the whole purpose of covering more scenarios. So with hidden portals, which I'll describe a little more deeply in a moment, I can manage things like multiple selections, where I need to pick more than one record at once and that kind of thing. I can add tools to these hidden, popovers and stuff like that for adding new records, and that's the sort of thing on the fly. So, we're getting more capable here, but obviously things are getting harder. So here are a couple of examples of, how you might deploy some hidden portals. So I got both my hidden portal examples here on the same layout now. So I've got popovers on this side. So if I click my favorite color field, you can see I've got a popover here and my list of trusty colors. I didn't go as far as adding, like a plus button up here to allow to allow me to add a record on the fly, but you can extrapolate, add your script and your button, that kind of thing. You can get a new record in here and pick it while you're working on it. So you can see that works just fine. It's a one record only, but I could do some scripting here that would allow me to pick red and blue if I had a two favorite color requirement here and that sort of thing. So pretty straightforward solution. I'm just showing a portal of all related records here, and that seems to work okay for just this kind of simple thing. Now, the big downside to these solutions are that they really aren't portable. You've got no choice but to recreate. Thank you, Chris. Gosh, you guys know the Muppets, the old guys from the Muppets. Anybody out there? They always sit in the balcony of the movie theater and heckle. That's Chris over there right now. So the slide panel is the same concept. I've just got this other, got a kind of an invisible layout object here that I'm flipping over to when I click on my field, and it pops up a list. So again, these things are kind of neat to look at from a user perspective. They it's fun to watch happen. Popovers showing up and stuff like that. But like I said, the big downside here is that these require more development than those other methods of just using the pop-up lists and drop-down pop-up menus and drop-down lists. And they require scripting, that kind of thing. So we're adding layers, and the difficulty with using these over and over again is that you really do have to create brand new table occurrences for most of these solutions each time you want to implement this method. So you got to go into the graph and you got to build some relationships, and you got to go onto the layouts and you got to copy and paste and you repoint some stuff, and it just ends up being more busy work. So like I said before, our goal is to create solutions where the busy work is cut to a minimum. A few years back, after I started with Chris at Extensitech back in like 05 or so, we ended up for a little while there employing like a full-time employee who was essentially our clicker. She was a professional clicker, we called her, because all she did was take these long scripts or go on these layouts and click on every button, go into the definition of whatever thing, and change the following three letters to these other three letters in all the places where you see it. And we had so much work that was just like that we were paying someone full time to do that all the time. And that it's not hard. It made for easy duplication of work, or replication of work, but it was obviously just really redundant. If we could come up with methods that don't require that, you just don't need that person to sit and do that stuff all day. It's not exactly highly skilled labor or anything. So So the hidden portals methods, like I said, it visually pretty pleasing, you know, so it's neat to put this stuff out on the layouts and that sort of thing. But when you're in an environment where you have to reproduce this stuff a lot, it becomes really labor intensive. So we'll go back to play mode here. I do have to point out, by the way, that on my MacBook Pro, I'm running PowerPoint from Microsoft, and it lets me actually swipe back and forth from my desktops. I have multiple desktops open here, kind of thing. So I can do this thing, but I can do it while my slideshow is open. So points for Microsoft there. Sorry about that, Mac people. Here we go. So next thing up here is custom layout. So things continue to mount, right? You got more and more development to do each time you deploy one of these things. But what the big benefit you're getting here now, though, is that I've designed something that is really specifically for the purpose of selecting records from this one table. So next time I encounter this, I may want to, and I need to select records from this table again, I can call up this layout again. So now we're really starting to get somewhere where I've built something that is reusable, and I don't have to, every time I need it, I don't have to make a new one. It's already there. It still, at least in a very basic form, it still is pretty scripting intensive because it usually requires that I build a brand new selection script every time I want to do this. So even though I can use my layout again, I really, my context that I'm calling this selection from means I have to create new relationships, and I have to reference those table occurrences and things like that, and fields and new tables. So I have to do a lot of scripting to support this. But like I said, we're moving in the right direction. We're making stuff that we can use again. So here's a custom layouts example. We'll hop over here. So now let's browse. Now I've got a whole new layout here, and I'm in a script and I'm paused. Actually, if I drag this out here, you can see I'm got my continue button over here, right? So I'm paused in a script and I'm waiting for the user to give me an answer here. So click your button, it opens a window, you pick your new color, and so on. And again, like I said, this definitely does the thing. You got room out here to add more tools. I can make it so I can pick more than one. I can add an OK button so that I can wait till the user's done here and he's picked as many or as few as they want. Cancels if I decide I don't want to change my value. So, these methods work. They're much more capable than the simple ones. But like I said, they've got this sort of mounting development load that goes along with them. So I think if at this point, I end up talking about Selector Connector a little bit, because Selector Connector, if you haven't heard about it, it's big. It's a big topic, so I'm not going to dive all the way in here, or really at all to speak of. It's obviously it's got two names. It's a selector and a connector. So it really is just more than just a selection tool. But that's obviously a big part of what Todd Geist came up with there, is a way to do selections that has a lot of the qualities that we're looking for. Being that it's reusable. You can really make this thing, make this contraption that they've got work for you and save you a lot of the work that we got. But the downside there is that it still requires you replicating layout objects. So if you want to do a line item, item selection on line items, you're going to have to replicate that everywhere you want to put that. So if you're in a system that has a bunch of tables with different tables that all have line items, like I've got orders and I've got invoices and I've got purchase orders and shipments and that sort of thing, and everywhere I've got a set of line items and I need to do a selection, I've got to replicate the layout objects and potentially do some repointing and that kind of stuff. Make sure the scripting that surrounds all that works in all those places. So it is far and away the closest thing to a really abstracted reusable solution that we've seen in a long time. But it came out, a long time after we've developed a lot of our methods, and it essentially solves a bunch of problems that we don't end up actually having anymore at Extensitech. So we have in some new work that we're doing, we have actually adopted, just sort of as a credit to Todd Geist and company, we have adopted some of their connector methods, because that stuff is really truly powerful. And I encourage you, if you haven't gotten into that, do take a look. I got the little link out here. You can pull down their video and their demo file, and you can dive in there and see what's possible, because that is a really big deal. And so if you're not familiar with those methods, I would suggest definitely spend a little time and learn about it if you haven't already. So let's see. Let me jump over here now. So I've got their demo file up here. Like I said, I'm gonna really kind of just tear through this because it is a deep topic. But the concept, generally speaking, for selection is one in that let's say we got orders. I've made the example of orders with line items a few times here, so hopefully that's familiar. But I've got orders here. I got a new order with a customer up here and some line items down below. And then if I click on one of these little handy dandy deals, I get a popover, and I get basically a hidden portal here. So they've got some filters here, a neat filtering tool, but I can pick Joe's Place as my customer. Here's another different one, right? This is a selection for line items. So this is kind of on the items table. So I can just filter out some stuff and pick an item. Okay. So like I said, that in the end, this turns out to be a really advanced implementation of the hidden portal methodology. I mean, there's some really deep stuff going on under the hood there that makes this really cool. But what I think they're missing is that they haven't created something that is truly abstracted here, right? That allows you to reference it and use it over and over again without having to do a lot of copy and pasting and clicking and and really it's not so much that what you have to copy and paste in this model it needs a ton of changing. It's just that if you ever wanted to change all of them, well, now they're everywhere. So if you've got this particular, let's say line items again, if I've got line items on like 8 or 10 of my layouts where I've got the selector connector and I have to make a significant change to that, I've got to go to every single layout and change that thing everywhere it exists. So again, really significant advancement here, but it doesn't solve all of the problems that we'd love to solve here. So I think for the moment, I need to take a quick intermission. All right, so I'm going to take about 30-40 seconds here and take care of a thing, and then I'll be right back with you guys. So talk amongst yourselves.
I don't know if this works. This is my first time using audio on my phone and joining GoToMeeting. So, nope. Says I've got audio. Yeah, it says I'm talking.
Comment on the, if I could comment on the selector connector. I am a big fan. By the way, can you guys hear me? Since I'm making fun of Wayne.
They can hear me.
Oh, I had my volume turned down.
See that? What have we done?
Yeah, we'll learn how to use all this technology one of these days. I would like to comment on the selector connector. I am a big fan. I think it's got a lot of potential. As Jason pointed out, though, I mean, the good news is you've got this popover object that you can put on just about any layout. The bad news is now you've got 100 of them and you decide you want to add a field. So that's really the only slam, if you will, that I could put on the actual selector. It's not a bad idea. It's actually a really awesome idea. I ended up not paying much attention to it for a while, though, because as Jason said, it kind of solved a problem that we didn't have until we took a close look and realized that this isn't the only thing that selector connector does. Being able to connect to any table from anywhere is pretty wild and has a lot of other implications. It's just this happens to be kind of the flagship use. So, all right. Well, I think Jason's back. I'm sorry, Frank. I saw you unmuted. I didn't. Were you trying to talk? Do you have anything?
No.
Oh, okay. Okay. I didn't mean to talk over you there. I just realized that you unmuted as well. Okay.
All right, yeah. Well, since we stopped there, thanks for letting me get away for a second. Let me remind everybody, do jump in. Like I said, I know I'm just ripping through some stuff and talking fast, but like I said, just wave your hand, holler, and we'll stop and talk. No doubt. So that's welcome. Don't feel like you have to just sit there and listen. Not you, Chris. You put your hand down. No, I'm just kidding. Do jump in, of course.
Actually, I did want to touch on something that I was waiting to see if you would, but number one is duplicate records and the ability to determine that the user has picked a non-unique value. that they're trying to relate to, and kind of walking the user through that. You did touch on that a little bit, but that's I think a big problem with selection, because the value list isn't necessarily made up of unique values. There's lots of John Smiths. That's why it's such a cliche. But it also prevents duplicates to have a good selection routine. Like when you talk about, yeah, it's there, Jason. I saw it.
No, I'm sorry, I can't. It's window or thing is.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
It also helps prevent duplicates, because like in the case where you're going to pick a color, and you as the user know that if the color's not there, you're going to have to go over to the color screen and add it. The user is going to skip the step of checking to see whether the color is already there pretty reliably. Maybe not with colors, but definitely with things like contacts. You know, if you tell a user to go put in this, go put in an order, and they think they've got a new customer, if they know that they can't add in the course of selection, they'll go create the customer first, not realizing it's a duplicate, and then make an order. So trying to get that new record involved in the selection, I think, is really key to preventing people from making duplicates. If you make it easy for them to check first, and if there is no record, create a new record right away, they won't be tempted to skip the step. They won't be tempted to make the assumption that this is new. They won't be tempted to say, well, probably burnt sienna is not in the list, so before I even go to people, I'm going to go add burnt sienna. So we find that our methods reduce duplicates a lot, in addition to dealing with duplicates once they happen, because they still do. There really are multiple John Smiths. This actually prevents a lot of adding duplicate records, because we make it easy for people to try and add it from the list, and there's a chance that you might get off without having to add anything new. But if you do have to add something new, we're not going to stop and penalize you and make you go to another screen. So that was my 2 cents. I'll back up.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, it is true. Actually, I didn't concentrate overly on that one. You can see it here. It's the third bullet point that the pop-up menus specifically, and as I mentioned with the drop-down list as well, those sort of inherently cannot really cope with multiple matching records. So the other methods, you can of course deal with some of that stuff with scripting and stuff like that. So it's possible, and that's in fact what we've ended up doing. So I mentioned stupid FileMaker tricks, so I'm about to pull the top off of a whole lot of those to show you what happens next in order for us to deal with all these different things, because it's not very sexy, I mean, I don't mean to to think that everybody really wants to sit around and think about selection that much, but when it comes to creating a user interface that's really consistent and that is really reliable from a data integrity standpoint, this is kind of one of the central tenets of our solutions, that we have a selection method that it works the same way everywhere you go, regardless of what things you're trying to pick. So it's really familiar for the user, and it always helps. It always is driving them toward best practices and data integrity and that sort of thing. So, it, like I said, not terribly sexy, but I mean, really, really important when it comes to creating a good, solid database solution. So where did we leave off there? I think I finished up with what I wanted to say about selector connectors. So let's move down a few slides and talk about Xlink. So I made up another stupid word for this. It's this is our brand of selection. So it's the Extensitech Selectificator. And we call it Xlink because we X everything in our business, just because we're that kind of nerdy too. So Xlink is kind of everything that is good about the simple methods of FileMaker. We wanted to be able to offer users that experience where, when you're dealing with a simple selection scenario, all you gotta do is click in the thing and it'll give you a list, and you pick the thing from the list, and it works just like you'd expect it to. It's fast. You can type ahead. You can tab into the field and the list pops up. It does all the things that you really want a solution to do there inherently, and it makes the easy things really easy. But it's a super smart value list. It allows you to do the other stuff. It allows you to pick from the list when the list is really long. It allows you to do, to kind of right in the middle of a selection, do a search and find on multiple complex criteria or something like that to find the record that you're looking for if it's in a very large and complicated table. allows you to add a brand new record on the fly in any table that you happen to be picking from. And well, given all the other stuff we built around it, make sure that new record adheres to all of the data, the data integrity rules that you've created in the solution. So, this is undoubtedly a gigantic contraption, and so, by no means could I exhaustively discuss all of the factors that go into this, but I present it here for you because it is a thing that we've created that does painstakingly address all of those selection scenarios that I've laid out before, and it does so in a way that inherently doesn't require a developer to sit and pore over scripts, changing a few characters or repointing table occurrence references. It doesn't require you to copy complex layout objects over and over again and repoint them, or have those layout objects existing in so many places in the solution where you have to go change them all one at a time and and painstakingly make sure you went and found them all, that kind of thing. So Xlink is really, like I said, this sort of epitome of abstraction here when it comes to selection. We've created an environment where we can call up this method as often as we need to and as often as we like, and we never have to write a new script. We never have to create new layout objects, or no more than you would for the sake of setting up a regular old selection field anyway. So it again kind of codifies all those things that we were talking about really needing here. So I'm going to dive in. It's a lot. Like I said, we have a few, pretty good amount of time left to talk about this stuff, but especially now, jump in, ask questions, point out anything that you want about this stuff, because this is what we live for, is to have other people taking a peek under the hood at our stuff and talking about what we're doing. So here we go, right? Like I said, totally abstracted. This leverages existing layouts. Okay, that's a big part of this, is that we're not creating customized layouts that we only use for this one selection purpose. We're actually using our sort of standardized data entry layouts for this purpose. And I'll show you the stupid FileMaker trick related to that. You could of course do it with a regular old list view, a selection sort of inherently being made up of a list. I've kind of skipped over one of the phases of my methodologies here, so I kind of want to back up to that and point these out. That we talked about custom layouts, and I've just sort of hinted about leveraging existing layouts, and that's clearly in between custom layouts and Xlink here in my list. So let me kind of show you what I mean by that concept of leveraging existing layouts. That's like custom layouts, very, very much the same as using a custom layout that you've created for selection over and over again. But what's even better about it is that, let's see, here in my color method, I've got my standard color layout. So if I were going to come here and I needed to create, my new colors, Chris likes burnt sienna, okay, and so I'm going to go back and, I don't know, let's use custom layout since that's closest here. I'm going to make a new person. It's going to be Chris, and his favorite color is now burnt sienna, okay? And I smell a joke coming on here. His other favorite colors. Oh, God, okay. All right, so you can see that my existing data entry layout for colors is really not suited for selection, right? It's a form view. I can't pick from this list very well, so I've actually ended up having to create this specialized layout here that's just a much simpler list view of all my colors. So, in that sense, I have created a whole new thing just for the purpose of managing the selection process for whenever I need to select colors. So I'm bringing up XSpace now. And XSpace, this is XSpace v12 of ours. This is our sort of flagship framework or base solution that we use for pretty much all of our custom development projects. And it contains all these sort of methodologies that I've been talking about, and many, many more to go with it, that of course work together to make it all possible. But here is the basic concept of what I'm talking about here. I'm going to go to our contacts screen. Just a little click here. And you can see that I've got something going on here on the screen that is maybe a little unusual. I've got a list view up at the top, right? And this is really the FileMaker list view. So if I go into list, you can see that here's the body, okay? Can I zoom? How do we zoom on your computer, Wayne? Any? Bottom, no, I give up. Sorry, I can't zoom, so squint. Sorry if that's very small. But that's the body part. So you can see, you know, the list view is comprised of the actual body, and then here again, enter stupid FileMaker tricks. We have the whole detail view for each record stuffed down here in the gigantic footer. All right, so that gives us the ability to show you a list and actually show you the details of the record that you are currently viewing at the same time. Oops, that's the wrong keystroke. Okay, so you can see as I switch between contacts here, I'm just cranking along, and you're seeing details change as we go here. All right, and you know, I can do other stupid FileMaker tricks like, you know, slide panels or tab panels that are hidden here, and I can make the screen change on my detail view. So you see, we're doing kind of a lot with one layout, and this is a concept that we call the unified layout in our system, and this allows us to have one screen where you do everything. You do data entry here, you do finds here, you do selections here, okay, which is what we've come here to talk about. So it's new records, it's old records, it's edit records, it's select records, it's find records. It does all those things. So Chris, great, X layout. So unified layout, come X layout, is one of the, you know, the basic features behind being able to do what we're doing here, and that is to have a reusable layout for selection purposes. So our stock layout, the one that we create for every single table in a database, you know, anything you're going to need to look at on screen in one of our systems ends up being on a screen that looks like this, where you can get a list view and a detail view at the same time. So let's do a simple example. I'm going to go over to the addresses table. I'm just going to show everyone here. And so you can see my addresses table and my contacts table look awfully similar on screen here, don't they? They've got a list up top and details down the bottom again. So again, just building around consistency. The user knows what to expect wherever they navigate, they're going to see the same arrangement of data. So let's see. I would like to just show you the idea of using the existing layout to create a selection dialog out of it. So if I go, I'm going to create a new record. I just did a command in there. So I'm on a new address, and I want to pick the contact. So first field up here where I can do stuff is to choose a contact. So I got the drop-down list you would expect, but I'm going to skip over that for the moment and kind of get right to this thing. Okay, so this is the concept I'm talking about here. What you're seeing is the contact screen that I just came from over there. This is it's in a smaller window, so we did a FileMaker trick here. If you drag it down, you can see it is really and truly just the regular layout. But if you make your window so small that it can't display a single record, it will get rid of the footer for you. So I've created a kind of selection dialog window here. I'm paused in a script right now. You can see I've added some OK and cancel buttons so that I can get the user's selection and they can tell me when they're done. This is a select one and only one selection. So, well, actually, I take that back. It's a 0 to 1 selection. So I can click. Oh, I am unclicking. So whether it should or shouldn't be, that's something that you can control in our method. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But you can see I can pick 1, but not 2 records. Okay, or I could say never mind and pick 0 records if I felt like it. Okay, so addressing all of those types of concerns here. Only it's all built around one single script that takes a bunch of parameters that tells the selection how to behave, and it also tells it what table am I picking from. Which is, by way of convention, telling it what layout to go do the selection on, how many records are you allowed to pick, what records are already selected, so I can show those highlighted. All those kinds of parameters essentially are able to be added to this method, right? We can just feed that stuff into this one script that we only have to write one time. Thank goodness, because it's a doozy. But it allows us to build all that stuff in kind of on the fly as we're laying out things on a layout. We just write a kind of, fairly complicated parameter, I guess. But for the most part, it's just a couple of details you pop in there, and you can end up with something like this on screen where I've got one of my layouts that I built a long time ago for the use with contacts. It's got everything on there about contacts I want. From within here, I can do a find, for instance. I'm still in my selection, so I'm looking for Jason. So I do my find. There he is. Okay, I can pick him. I've clicked and highlighted, tell it okay, and I come back and I've picked Jason for the new address. Okay, so reusable layout, right? And really reusable, not just reusable so I can do selections over and over again, but it is reusable to the point that I do everything almost that I do with contacts at all in the database on that layout, and I'm using it for my selection too. Okay. Let's see. That looks like somebody mentioned something not Chris mentioning there. Okay. All right. Gosh, you guys are killing. Thank you. All right. So reusable layout. Okay. That's the big thing there. And in fact, in a couple of versions of XBase ago, all right, XBase again, that's the thing you're looking at here, the green thing on the screen. That was the only way we had a selection set up. So anytime a user wanted to do a selection, they could click a little button here by the field they were picking for, and it would pop up one of those windows like that with a list view from one of the layout, from whatever layout they're picking from, and so that was sort of the stock behavior for doing a selection in one of our systems. But we found over time that our users complained that was clunky, and it's a lot of clicking and a lot of work just to pick from a list when you just wanted a quick thing. So from that, out of that sort of clunky user interface grew this more developed concept of Xlink, and that's where, like I said, it's a smart value list at this point. So if I click in here and just use the native value list functionality, you can see that I've got my list of contacts, and this can go on for many, many, many thousands of records. FileMaker really helped us out with this one by adding the feature that if your list is sufficiently long, they'll put a little ellipsis down here at the bottom and not actually try to populate all 280,000 of your contact records for you in that list. So essentially, when they figured out how to do that for us, that made this particular part of the method possible. Because before that, obviously, if you had a very large table and you tried to show a list of all records in a drop-down list, it would just go boom, and your system would sit there and spin at you for a long time. So now, since FileMaker threw us a bone there, we were able to offer this sort of standard value list behavior with a drop-down list, but it's even better still. All right, you've got a select option right at the top here, so that if a user is looking at a table that really I need some more info, like I just can't tell enough from the people's name, I need to see, I don't know, let me also see their addresses or something like that, I could go and opt straight for the selection option here, right? And I can see more info. I could, if I were a smart user, drag my window down and see yet more details about contacts in order to make an informed decision about who this address belongs to. So I've got the ability to go from this sort of fast interface, the standard drop-down list. I can go over to the more robust selection interface of working from the list layout by using that select option there. Furthermore, I can do something like this, and how's this go? I can add, let's say, Karen Stella here, and to Chris's point before, the system really is going to now try to figure out whether I know who Karen Stella is, right? She's not in my value list. We could see, my list of contacts is short here, but if I had 10,000 in here, I wouldn't be able to tell right off if Karen were in there. And so I can click here, try to put in Karen's name, and if the database doesn't match her up with the contact in the database, it's going to go ahead and dialog me and just say, I didn't find anybody called that. Are you sure that's what you meant? You can put it back to what it was before. If you're going, no, that's just completely wrong, I can go ahead and go back to the list. Let me see the list again. So I can hit the pick option here, and it will pop the list again. Or I can say, no, I'm really quite certain at this point that Karen is a brand new contact. We didn't find her at all, and then go ahead and create her as a new one. And so the Xlink mechanism now is going, okay, here you go. Here's a window for a new contact. What kind of contact? She's a person. What's her gender? I can fill out as much or as little of this as I like right now and tell it okay. And when I'm done, Karen is now a fully fledged contact in our database, and she's now also linked to this new address record.
An important point there is that you didn't have to retype Karen's name. That's a relatively new thing in the history of selection with us, that will actually take what you typed in when you were trying to enter Karen and not make you type it again if you decide to make a new record. So we actually just plug that into the fields for you.
There you go.
So once again, you don't want to penalize the user because it's somebody new, because if you do, they'll just want to get that out of the way. They'll skip right over checking to see if somebody exists or not.
All right. Let's see. So how are we doing on our list of objectives here? I just kind of want to run through those and talk about what we've done so far. So we've got select from existing records. So you've seen that. I picked myself from the list. Did a search and found myself during the process, and that sort of thing. We added Karen on the fly there, and we talked a little bit about the selection types, right? In our address to contact selection there, it's a a 0 to 1 selection type there. So you've kind of seen that scenario. Let me show off one more multi. Oh boy, now I'm blowing up my presentation. Undo. All right. Here's an example of a multiple record selection. Let's see where if I go. Boy, I had my notes on my other computer there. So let's go to activities. Oh, Chris is going to bail me out here, aren't you? Yeah, that's what I was doing, Chris. Good call. So I want to go over to my activity screen. I'll just show all and pick on. Oh, I have none, so I'll add a new one here. All right, my basic activity is going to be an email. So let me pick the contacts related to this email. So we'll stick with the contacts relationship here there. So I can actually have multiple contacts related to an email. So think multiple recipients naturally. All right, so I'm going to skip over the dialogue again. We'll talk about that in a second. But now I'm in a place where I can pick, I want to email to all of these people here, right? So there we go. Now I've set myself up a nice little portal here so I can see all those related contacts. But same concept, right? I'm picking from my basic list. I can pick right from here. I can type ahead, Ty, there we go, and it'll find Ty. So it's doing all those cool, simple things that I like, but it also gives me the ability to go all the way out and do a multi-selection over in that other window if I like. Okay. Oh, and I need a subject because I'm a good email writer. I'm well behaved as an email writer. Okay, so again, like I said, that's just kind of visual representation of how how this system is going to allow you to handle those multiple selections. So diving into how this works, all right, it does require like some FileMaker ingenuity here, to say the least, right? Oh, good point, Chris. Sorry, I left off duplicates. Chris is here to champion duplicates tonight. So let's do a dupe here real quick. I'll be a bad user and I'll make a new person called Jason Sanders. All right.
There really is more than one Jason Sanders in the world. Try Google.
Posters. All right. I'll just snap back over here. All right. So now let's see if I want to pick. Well, since I've already picked myself, let me unpick me just to make things as clear as I can. All right, so I've removed myself from the list. All right, so now Jason Sanders. So tabbing off there. All right, so Xlink sees that there's more than one match for Jason Sanders and says, I can't do this in a list for you. So it automatically says, pick from the matching contacts. So you see I've got my new selection window and I've got my matching results here in the new window. So I can say, yeah, I definitely want Jason Sanders, the one with the email address, please. Okay. So again, sort of intelligently preempting the user making the assumption this contact doesn't exist. I'm going to make them again, helping the user along to make an informed decision about what to pick here. Maybe Jason Sanders, as Chris said, isn't really the one and only, but we know more than one. So that again is turns out to be a pretty necessary part of creating good data in a system there. So again, like I said, let's take a look real quick at as quickly as we can manage here at the nuts and bolts of this. I'm going to move to the simpler example of the single selection over on the addresses layout. So pop back over there and you'll recognize that I've got a couple of stacked fields here. So like I said, we're not immune to the stupid FileMaker tricks required here, but definitely, this is the same mechanism that we set up way back in the bad old days to do a basic valueless selection with a drop-down list. So we're definitely using that. Like I said, one of the big parts of this was to create an environment for the user where they're getting a sort of really comfortable native FileMaker experience when that's appropriate, when that's all there is to this. So we're using that same methodology. I've got a sort of match field back here that allows me to set a value into the local table and then check a relationship to see if I've got a match or not. And then, like I said, in fact, we're checking to see if we have no match, one match, multiple matches, and then doing something about that after we determine what the story is there. Now, you'll see if we scooch a little bit further here that I've got some script triggers cooking. All right. So if I go in here, and do script triggers, you can see that I've got an on-object enter script trigger and an on-object save script trigger. On enter, I'm going to run a script, and I don't want to explain all of this scripting methodology because it too is its own sort of mountain of complexity. But Just bear in mind that the whole goal here is that we just create a bunch of stuff that you can write once and use it a million times. And that, again, this is just an extension of that. So pretty much everything you see on every layout, by the way, so all the script triggers, all the buttons, all the everything, runs Xscript in our systems. So this is kind of modular scripting, I guess is sort of the name for this sort of thing. And our selection methodology is no exception there. It runs Xscript like so does everything else. So within Xscript, I'm going to feed it some parameters, and this is where I was mentioning that we can feed things into our selection method that will tell it how to behave. So you can see I've got some stuff here that is essentially, abbreviated gobbledygook, and it's just a syntax. It's kind of a shorthand that we created so that we can pass multiple script parameters into any script and have the system, not necessarily have to know that they're in any particular order. So the developer doesn't need to know that they're in any particular order, and so the system can basically parse out these very complex script parameters, and they always work the same way every time for any script that we're ending up using here. So more of same, a little bit off topic, obviously, but bears talking about. So when I talk about passing the parameters, so in other words, setting up the rules for the way a selection behaves, it's this kind of stuff that we write that does it. All right, and so you can see in a little bit of gobbledygook, a handful of special characters and some abbreviations, we're able to inform an object on the layout that we want a selection that does the following stuff and gets back the following, gets back such and such result. Okay, so on object enter, we run this particular method XLE here. That's called, stands for Xlink enter. And Xlink enter is where all that logic that we've been kind of really laboring over for the last hour or so is stacked up. I'll show you. I mean, I can show you the script here, but it's too long for 8 minutes. So to give you the idea though, it is essentially just coming up with, it's finding out all the answers to all the questions that we've just been discussing here. There it goes. See, on and on and on. But look here. Here's the deal. We have created this thing so that all these parameters up here, all these set variables, which are stacked at the top of most of our scripts, these are all parameters that are being parsed out of the these script parameters. So right up top, we go get script parameter, and then we spend some time chewing that up, taking it apart, and figuring out what has the developer told me about this particular instance of using this thing that tells the script how to behave once it gets down here to the real nuts and bolts. Now, it does seem like a lot. It seems like it would be overwhelming, but our methodology is that the vast majority of these, like in some cases 100% of these options, have defaults so that you don't have to actually set them every time. It just behaves in the most common way things should behave, and you only have to add in exceptions most of the time there. So like I said, there's no doubt this is complicated, and it involves a lot of forethought that we put into trying to come up with a way to deal with all of those different types of exceptions and that sort of thing. But at the end of the day, when Xlink enter you go into the script, or you go into that field, the user pops in there before the value list even builds, this script fires and comes up with all the kinds of details that it needs to determine how should this list behave. And then after that's done, you get on object save. So if the user actually changes the value and gets out of the field, we do a similar thing. We run Xscript again with a parameter that runs another script, XLS, that's Xlink save this time. So it just basically runs a different script, and Xlink save is what to do about it all, right? So Xlink enter gathers up all the details about how we want things to behave and that sort of stuff, and what should happen when this fires. And Xlink save is the thing that just goes off and executes it. Okay. Whoops, I did not mean to do that. I meant to show you the actual script. But again, so much to take in at once. The Xlink save part of this, like I said, is the execution of it all. So again, large quantity of variables, all of which have a default generally, and so they come up with their own. These things come up with their own value, and teach the script how to behave down below. So you end up, if we were to painstakingly work our way through these scripts, you'd end up with all of those sort of logical decisions there about, I click in here. Xlink enter has run already, all right, and it's produced the value list and told me things like, if I am I allowed to pick more than one record? Can I pick 0 records? am I allowed to add a new record? Am I allowed to do this selection thing? All of those kinds of details can be fed into this, so that in any given set of requirements, I can kind of fine tune the way this particular selection works. And again, no scripting required, right? So I just need to know, which of those parameters to pull the switch on, that kind of thing, to get things to work there. So lots going on behind the scenes naturally, right? The big payoff, of course, is that for the user, you get something that happens the same way every time. It doesn't matter if you're picking a contact for an address, or if you're choosing an inventory item for a line item on a sales order. The selection routine is going to do its thing, and it's going to guide the user through making all those choices. So I think we've got about 5 minutes left. And again, I do apologize for having to be a little rushed with all the stuff that happened in the middle there. But in general, I think I've presented about everything that I think will give you the idea that if you really look at those things, getting this set of stuff done, I want to be able to create a solution that accommodates all of these different things that I may need to do at any point with a selection, and to do it in such a way that I don't have to stop what I'm doing and go write a new script and go create some new table occurrences necessarily, or go and click on a bunch of stuff and retype everything over and over again. Then you can see, like I said, we've gone a long way toward coming up with a solution that allows us to do that. I had prepared here a demo that I was going to present, where I was going to build a brand new table. I have like a little database of birds, actually, that I downloaded from like the Audubon Society or something like that. And I was just going to quickly create a new table in our XBase file, and set up a brand new layout for it, which goes pretty quickly. It's all of a 2 or 3 minute process for us to build a whole table and a whole layout, and just set up a couple of quick fields there. And I was going to show you how I can quickly set up an X-link to pick my favorite bird as a contact. So on a contact, I could show you the selection there. It really almost fit. I have 5 minutes to go. I could have done that in less than 10. Certainly. So that was really going to be there to demonstrate the idea that with this set of tools, we can add brand new elements, whole new data elements to a solution, and have them, linking up with other data elements in the solution in a very consistent way that the user, that any user's already been in there is going to immediately latch onto. They're going to know exactly what to do as soon as they see that field that says, favorite bird. They'll click right in there, they'll start typing, or they'll select, and they'll know exactly how that's supposed to work. And the amount of work that it took me to do that as a developer, what I'd hoped obviously to show you is that that would have happened in a matter of a very few short minutes, where if you were starting from scratch and building these tables from scratch, using, I guess, more standard FileMaker methods, you would be looking at many times the minutes. It's probably on the order of 4 or 5 times faster to do this basic thing that we do just about any time we're going to add a new data element here. So sorry about that. My compelling evidence is getting cut from the Friso here, but if this stuff's appealing to you, if the general concept of building abstracted tools that allow you to work fast and allow you to produce an experience for your users that is more consistent and that sort of thing, then we love to geek out about this sort of stuff. So I think as we're wrapping up here, I guess we'll probably go ahead and shut down the official presentation. We'll cut the recording and so on, but I certainly want to invite any of you guys who want to hang around and spend a few more minutes on this if it is interesting enough to you to do that. We'd be glad to finish up that demo and certainly discuss anything else that anybody's got to bring up here. So thanks so much for joining us. Any of those of you who want to go ahead and take off, we appreciate you coming, and hope to see you next month. And I think that's all that is. Thanks. Talk to you soon.